The power of cold brew and lesbianism is powering me this morning.
Hello and welcome to Madoka Magicast, the podcast devoted to the Dark Magical Girl franchise, Madoka Magica. Said it correctly. I am your host, Amanda, and I am here with our producer, Panda, and two guests, Joe and Steve. Hi, Joe and Steve.
Hello. Hi, I'm Joe.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Steve.
This is the podcast where we talk about the Madoka Magica franchise and all of its spin-off material and all the things that we love about it and don't love about it. And today we have Joe and Steve on the show to have a special episode specifically talking about lesbians.
Yeah, that's it.
Just the concept
Yeah.
of lesbians.
I guess if we have to be more specific, what we're specifically talking about here is Homura and Madoka's relationship and some of the queer subtext in the show overall, overarching. Now, if you think we read too much gay into the show as it is, just wait.
You might as well just turn the episode
Yeah.
off because this one is not for you, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're really going to go far with that today, so get ready.
We should probably, before we get started, we have a very important thing to talk about, which is that
Oh my god.
Gen
yeah,
Urobuchi
of
has
course.
come out of his well to shame mankind
Yes.
with another Madoka movie.
Oh my goodness.
How is everyone coping with this news?
I woke up that morning to 3 DMs on Twitter of people either linking it to me or asking me if I had seen it. It was all over my Twitter feed, and I frankly was overjoyed. I then, the same day, spent 4 hours making a 1 and 30-second shitpost video.
that was really good.
And I'm just very happy and excited, and I hope it's good. That's all. I mean, we don't know anything else. We don't know anything about it, so that's
No,
pretty much all we
nothing.
can say, yeah.
Yeah, I've been scrubbing through it, like, frame by frame.
What we do know is that it seems like the script was written back, like, not that long after Rebellion happened. So, like, I have one fear, and I don't know what that fear is.
I've got my own fears, and I loved Rebellion, so I'm like, oof, I don't know what to expect. I mean, I expect it to be similar to what we saw in the concept movie, like, you know,
I hope
in
so.
terms of, like, the concept of it, I expect it to be similar to the concept trailer. But yeah, I don't know. Honestly, what I'm really hoping for is a very confusing movie that will demand that I rewatch it time and time again so I can understand it. That's really, that's
I hope so.
the ideal. That's what I want.
I'm okay with that.
I'm also okay with that.
Yeah, there was a lot of mommy in the trailer, so I'm kind of excited to see where they go with her.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say that if he wrote it shortly after Rebellion, that means Magireko did not exist yet, so it basically means there's no chance of Magireko characters being in this movie, unless they went back and changed it and added them in.
Well, they also announced a Magireko spin-off thing, right?
What?
I don't even know what this is. I just know that the magical girl has green hair, and I'm excited about it.
Oh, well,
Oh,
yes. I saw her. I did not even bother looking her up because I was like, oh, is she actually going to be in the new movie?
No, I think this is separate. I don't think
Okay.
it's connected to...
Okay.
I don't think it's connected to the movie.
That's what made me go, oh. And then I just didn't even bother to really look at what she was. I mean, I guess I should have as someone with a podcast about Madoka.
Oh my god.
Well, there's not really much information out about it now, so, like, there's really not that much to know. All I've been able to parse out is that it's a Magireko spin-off of some kind, and it involves this new girl, and I don't know anything about her, or what the deal is. I don't even remember what the spin-off is called.
I do remember that the folks in our Discord were making fun of her terrible design.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
how
and they were right to.
Her hat looks like an ashtray.
I gotta see this.
She has a vagina bone window.
What the heck?
She does. She doesn't appear to be wearing underwear.
Okay. Lovely.
I'm nervous.
I mean, where was the image of her?
I was gonna say, like, I don't think I've seen any pictures of
That's simply because the window rides so low.
just so low.
That we're like, well, I guess she's not wearing underwear because you can't see her underwear.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's just a spandex onesie under there.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a picture. I'm gonna send it.
Oh, did you find the image?
Yeah, I found it on the the podcast Discord.
Yeah, if you find it, you put it in this chat that we're in, and then all of us can see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about how you all probably know this, but I was rewatching the concept movie trailer this morning, and there was like a shot in it where there's a bunch of different like multicolored silhouettes of girls that we haven't seen before, and they look like they're all like different kinds of magical girls that are going to be helping Madoka at some point, and I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, exciting.
Yeah, so that's her right there with her ashtray hat and her
Oh my God, you're right.
Vagina-
It's an ashtray hat.
her vagina bone window.
Oh my God.
Her stockings that look like
Garter belts.
It looks like garter belts, but it really is just stockings with like little windows cut in the sides for some reason.
I love designs like this because when you translate that into real life, it just doesn't work. Like,
You know, if it weren't, I don't like this design, but if it weren't for the vagina bone window and probably the notches in the hat that make it look like an ashtray,
an ashtray.
like make the top of the hat flat, right? And then get rid of the vagina bone window, and then make her hair like less like that. Then
Less like that.
you know what I mean? Like, what's going on? What's going on here?
I really don't like that style
It's
of like
too much.
The blunt, choppy
Yeah,
layer.
it's too much of that.
Really? I love that. I like that.
But she has
style.
it's too much. Like, there's too many pieces.
Oh yeah, there's so much going
Like,
on here.
take out some of that. Take some of that out. It's too much. If you toned this down a little bit, it would be better. It would be
that's
a lot
like
better.
Almost all of the designs in Magica.
Yes, of course. Yes, I know.
So
I know.
she fits right in.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess you're right.
There is so much going on here.
Yeah.
From, like, she's got some sort of beret to, like, the stripes on her jacket to the fur on her jacket to the long sleeves that also have some sort of ribbon dangly bit. This is awful.
And then her weapon is like a pair of... Our Discord chat figured it out, what it was supposed to be. What did they say
I never
it
saw
was?
that.
It looks like scissors.
Sewing scissors?
Like,
What?
Like, they're not scissors. They're like those weird scissors where, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Those scissors where they're like the things for your fingers are on the wrong side.
Yeah.
She looks like a Danganronpa OC.
She
That,
does.
I was also thinking she looked like a Danganronpa.
It's the hair.
Like, she really does.
The hair makes her look like that one Danganronpa character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the little stripies. It reminds me of the one that wears like the checkery. His name's Kokichi. I'm not gonna pretend that I don't know Danganronpa. I watch it. God damn it. Wait a second, that's the wrong anime. Madoka.
So, I think that has brought us to our purpose here today. Correct?
Yeah.
Let us talk about some gay shit in Madoka Magica, because that is the topic of discussion for today.
Yes, exactly.
This was specifically... Joe, you came to us with the idea for this.
Yes, I did.
Episode.
So basically, right, I was watching your podcast, episode by episode. It's so good. Anyways, I literally, like, tell, like, all my friends that watch Madoka, I'm like, you guys should watch this podcast, it's really good. Moving on. So, I think, like, in one of the earlier episodes, you guys mentioned how, the show talks about, they mention like relationships, and then Homura appears. And I think this happens like a few times. And I think at some point, Yasha and Vanna were like, oh, it seems like this is, leading somewhere. Is there something gonna happen? Something to do with like Madoka and Homura having a relationship, of some kind. And I think he said, oh, we'll talk about it later. But then I think it never like popped up again.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like so much to talk about, I'm just like, well, you guys, let's talk about this. So yeah, I think I want to know like what is it that, you would want to say about this, because I'm so curious. And I have my own opinions. Steve has his own opinions. I'm sure Panda has like so much to say as well. So here we are.
I have to expose myself here on this podcast this morning, because I'm gonna tell you guys something, and Amanda, you may be shocked to hear this, because this is very out of character for me. But the first time I watched Madoka, the very first time, did not pick up on like the queerness of like the ending with Madoka and Homura.
What?
And I was like on the internet, and people kept talking about how gay the anime was, and I was like a little confused. But
I'm shocked.
Panda, I kind of don't believe you.
I know, and you shouldn't, but I promise it's true.
Okay.
Like, I don't know what was going on with me in 2011 or whatever year it was when I think it was like 2012 when I watched this. But like, I just, for whatever reason, it just didn't really register. I think I was just so like, because when I watched Madoka the first time, I thought it was just gonna be like a magical girl show, because I literally knew nothing about it, and then just everything that happened, it was just like was so much. And I think I just, by the end, like I was just like, okay, that was cool, and then everybody was like, this was super gay, and I was like, wait a minute.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like you're watching the ending where like Madoka and Homura are like naked in the stars holding each other.
They seem like very good friends.
This is just
They're good
gals
friends.
being pals.
Gals being pals.
Just gals being pals.
Yeah. I remember when I used to do this with my girlfriends.
When we used to float in space together naked and talk about our feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cry into each other's bosom.
I did that.
God.
So before we get too far into it, whenever we have new guests on the show, we do like to get to know them a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, jeez. Oh, no.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay.
The mortifying ideal of being known.
You don't...
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to share anything you don't want to share. Like, this is not a job interview.
Well, when I was 4.
But if you want to tell us about yourself, where you live, how old you are, how you got into Madoka, anything else that you think is relevant to what we're going to talk about, like relevant backstory about yourself or your context for your perspective, that kind of stuff. If you would like to share,
yes.
Whoever.
Do you want to go first, Joe?
Yeah, I'll go first. So basically, I watched Madoka. I think I must have been like 14 or something. And the only reason I was watching anime in the first place was because I had like recently realized I was a gay person. So, nothing else in the media really, you couldn't really see any lesbian romance anywhere apart from anime. And even then it was all like, very queer baity.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then, I was basically like online, like looking for like gay anime to watch. And Madoka popped up. I had, that's actually the only reason I started watching it. So I was like, okay, I'm into this. Let's get into it. And then all the stuff about, how it's, such a dark show that, I happen to like really enjoy it for, the story and the narrative and the romantic subtext. It's not like a massive, arguably, it's not like a massive part of the story for the most part. But then when it gets to like, Homer's backstory and stuff, I was just like, oh my God. It was so crazy to me how, like, by the end, when I finished watching it, I just found it so, even though it's not like there wasn't much of, like, girls holding hands and kissing or anything like that, I just felt it was, like, such a, I don't know, I felt like the way Homura and Madoka's relationship was written, it just felt like so, I don't know, like so like genuinely, like it was just so good to see. Even though like nothing really like romantic happened, it was just, you know, their feelings and like how that part of themselves like impacts the story. It just, I loved it. So yeah, sorry. I have so many emotions about this. So.
How long ago did you watch it?
So yeah, I think I was 14, so it was like in 2013. So Rebellion had just come out as well, and then I watched Rebellion. I was like, wow. So yeah, I haven't. I keep rewatching that movie over and over again. It was just so gay. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
As are many of us.
Yeah. How about you, Steve?
Oh, yes, it's me. I'm Steve. I guess, like, some little backstory is, like, I'm a My Little Pony artist on the internet.
Oh, hell yeah!
Hell yeah!
Yeah. I went to college for animation and film study and stuff, so that's why I'm so big-brained when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I watched Madoka, like, back in 2013 when Rebellion came out. You know, everybody was talking about how, like, it's got this really cool twist in it and stuff. And I guess, like, some backstory on me. I'm a trans man. I'm not a lesbian. Sorry, guys. But I love watching queer content, so, you know, relatable. And I really liked, like, the series of Madoka. I thought the time travel was really interesting, and then I watched Rebellion in Japanese, and I had no idea what was going on, and then I rewatched it in English, and I just found, like, Rebellion itself, the imagery, the story about Homura going through something so tragic, and then ending it with, like, reclaiming all of the shame and guilt that she's been going through her the entire series. I just found that really interesting, and it became just, like, a really special show to me.
Yeah.
So now I'm here to tell you all about how Homura is the next Lil Nas X. Call me by your name.
Yes. I was actually going to bring that up later, but you beat me to it, so.
Yeah. I've been holding on to it.
Well, cool. That's awesome. Well, welcome to the show. We're very happy to have you guys.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
And we are happy to have you here to talk about this very important topic that I know everybody is at least a little bit invested in this topic to some degree. Because I feel like it's very difficult, especially now in 2021, to get through Madoka Magica and not come out of it like, they gay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, my 2012 dumbassery aside.
I mean, even the most platonic reading of it is still, like, she is in love with her. To some degree.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it isn't, like, sexual love, it's, like, she is in love with Madoka to some degree. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you can't get to the ending of the series where Kyubey is like, you've literally rewritten the rules of the universe so you can be with this girl.
Yeah.
Like, and be like, yeah, that's just two friends. Like,
yeah. So whether you want to interpret it as a sexual orientation thing or a romantic preference or whatever it is, like, it's very difficult to get to the end of Rebellion especially and not be like, there is a love relationship happening here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe in 2011, it was maybe more reasonable for people like Panda even to come out of it not quite getting it. Or or maybe not reading it that way, just because, you know, LGBT rights and representation in media has come a long way in 10 years. But especially in 2021 especially, it's like unavoidable to watch the show and not come away with that impression.
I think it's amazing to me that, like, just 10 years ago, it was unheard of to see, like, queer characters on TV, and now we're seeing it all the time.
Yeah, I know, and it's wonderful.
It's amazing. I think the media is moving so fast right now.
I mean, including in anime, and I know that if Wonder Egg is too intense for you, totally valid. It is extremely intense, not for everyone. It has a content warning list that's literally a paragraph.
Oh yeah.
But that is another good example of how much more nuanced and smarter even queer representation is getting in anime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like, not even just a few years ago, I don't think that you could have had a character in an anime just look at the camera and say, I am a trans man. But Wonder Egg did that.
Wonder Egg did that. Absolutely. and had the characters in the show go, cool, let's be a couple in the future when we get back together. Like, that's literally what happens in the show.
Mm-hmm.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, yes. And there's another, one of the main characters in Wonder Egg is, like, one of my new favorite anime characters ever, because I do not have the widest knowledge of anime. I certainly have not seen every anime out there, but I legitimately can't think of an anime character that is like this character in terms of LGBT representation, and you know who I'm talking about.
Yes,
Panda.
yes, I do.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm a non-binary person. So, as a non-binary person, to see this kind of character being displayed with so much nuance, like, and respect for reality, it was like,
absolutely.
it was like, wow, this would not have been possible. I can't even believe that this is in an anime now. This is the first time I'm seeing this in anime now. So, you know, it really has come very, very far in just 10 years, which is awesome.
It's actually, like, one of the things that I really, really like about Madoka and Rebellion. I know not everyone agrees with this reading. This is my personal favorite one, but that Homura isn't exactly a good person completely all the way around.
Yeah.
And I like that. Like, you can go through Rebellion and you can both, like, understand and relate to her pain, her tragedy, and stuff like that. But also, she's not a perfect character. She's flawed. And she's a person. She's a girl. Like, she has all of that baggage and stuff. And I just really like that in Madoka, that our main character is complicated. You know,
absolutely.
Things aren't just one way.
Yeah.
You know,
and I am
that's queer people.
I am the most obnoxious anti-rebellion person on the show, and even I can agree with that. Like, I would say that's the case for all of them. Like, they all have flaws, and I don't know if you can really say that any of them are 100% good people. Maybe Madoka gets the closest.
She just skates by
for being so written intentionally, so Christ-like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to a point, that becomes a flaw for her in its own way.
Yeah.
Because it causes a whole bunch of other problems. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, I absolutely know what you mean. And it's another example of how, you know, not to get into the discourse, but it's one of those things where it's like, on one hand, we had gay representation was like the villains for so long. Like, that's all we had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, people were like, give us gay stories where they're happy. So we're like, okay, great.
Yeah.
And then we got, like, Yuri on Ice, and it was like, yay! We love that. And then it came back around to, can we let gay people be complicated again? And have, like...
Yeah.
And have bad things happen to them, and let them have flaws. And I think that's great. And I think Madoka kind of existed back in the era of let gay people be happy still. But I think that helps it age well now in 2021. Like, you can go back to it and watch it and be like, and it still works as interesting queer characters.
Despite whatever the author has said about, like, Madoka, I do think that, like, it'll only age better as we start looking back on it with, like, queer readings, with, like, feminist readings and stuff like that being really critical, because I do think it was kind of ahead of the curve if you look at the story of Madoka, or Homura and Madoka being queer characters who are also complicated and flawed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we get into some of the romantic subtext specifically in the show itself? Because I know you guys have definitely pulled out some examples of your own that that you would like to talk about. So please, you have the floor.
Yeah, we're talking about how, like, in episode 1, we start off with, you know, Madoka saying how she wants to get, you know, love letters, you know, she has never gotten one. It reminds me, I mean, I guess, sorry, I was, like, going into, like, a rambling. You know, Steve is, you know, really good, like, talking about, you know, narrative and stuff. Now more like, oh yes, this happened. Here's my feelings on this, not so much about interpretation.
That's okay. That's a little bit the panda method sometimes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
I'm like, oh, just ignore me. I'm just a college nerd.
Okay, yeah. Some of the instances that Steve and I were talking about, before this podcast was that scene where Madoka is saying how she wants to get love letters and, she's never gotten one. And, how Homura gets introduced after the main character's like talking about relationships. And I think this happens a few times. It's not just once. So there's this hint at something.
Yeah, do you mind if I expand on that a little bit?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I found it really interesting that the especially like the first 10 minutes of the first episode is explicitly written in the same way as like a rom-com shoujo. So
Yeah.
you have it open where she gets up in the morning, she has this conversation with her mom about secret admirers and boyfriends in her class, and she always brings up like the other girls and their relationships, and her mom talks about like you have to carry yourself like you have secret admirers. And I find it really interesting that they spend so much time, Madoka and her mother, talking about having relationships with men when Madoka's dad doesn't like have any screen time. Madoka isn't affectionate with her mother. She high-fives her and that's about it. And then she goes to school and her and Sayaka immediately start having conversations about secret admirers and stuff. And Sayaka immediately changes the conversation to be about how beautiful Madoka's mom is and that Sayaka is going to protect her and never let her have a boyfriend. And then you go into the classroom scene where the teacher starts talking about how men are terrible and you shouldn't date them. And then Homura is introduced and it's framed exactly like the introduction of a romantic lead.
Yeah, we get the zoom in and the she has I had a dream about her. I saw her in a dream.
And it's like not only is like the direction and the framing, but it's like every single conversation up until that moment is about Madoka and her prospective relationships with men.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I know exactly.
Sorry to take over, Joe. Go ahead.
No. It's chill. Because, before I watched Madoka, I didn't really, Madoka's like one of the first animes I watched, so I don't have this, I didn't watch like shoujo anime and shonen anime. I didn't really watch that before this. I watched like K-On! And Tamako Market, very light shows. And I, went straight into Madoka. So a lot of that contextualization, I don't really have it. So I find it really fascinating when people talk about that. I'm just like, wow, that's amazing.
No worries.
I think something else that really kind of highlights this like sapphic energy of the whole show is how little men are a part of the story. Like, I mean, you've got Kyosuke, but like, I mean, he's barely even a character. He is literally just a plot device.
Kyosuke is a plot device. The first time we get any characterization for Kyosuke is in the Different Story manga.
Oh yeah.
It's like not even in the series.
2/3 through this Different Story manga, we get a scrap. We get a crumb.
The Kyocera lore.
Yeah, we get crumbs of characterization for him. That's it. But even then, we still don't really know why Sayaka likes him so much, even now, 10 years after the fact, with all of the supplemental material. So you're right, the male characters, other than Kyubey, if you want to call him male.
I wouldn't. I don't think of Kyubey as having a gender.
No.
Yeah.
In many of my interpretations, I see him as kind of like an allegory for like an older man who's willing to take advantage of women.
I would agree.
Absolutely.
I would agree more with that. Like male, but kind of divorced from the boys of their age.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like,
there's
something about Kyubey, like the way he talks to the girls, that's so much like an adult trying to take advantage of like a child.
Yeah.
Like,
he
omits things. He speaks in really emotional language to get them riled up. He's such a classic manipulator, like all through the story. I just want to add on like the whole bit about Kyosuke. Like, I think it's really interesting because Sayaka like even comes to terms with the fact that like she doesn't even know if she has any like actual feelings for him. She makes the wish for him, and then afterwards she's like, "Did I do this just to control him, or did I do it because I loved him? I don't know." Despair time.
Yeah.
And I feel like we could also there's a lot of room for like compulsory heterosexuality interpretations of her
Mhm.
Yes.
of her
yes.
crush on Kyosuke, because like there's this like part of like a common experience with like lesbians and compulsory heterosexuality is developing crushes on boys or men who are unobtainable for some reason, and so
Yeah.
you feel sort of safe having that sort of crush, but then the moment it actually could become reciprocated, you sort of back off because it's not
Yeah.
something that you actually want. It's something that society has told you that you're supposed to want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting when you have Hitomi, because I like to see Hitomi as kind of like the quote-unquote ideal woman that all of these girls like should be according to like how society or Kyubey talks to them. Like
Yeah.
Hitomi is like, she's feminine, she's girly,
Yes.
she works really hard on all feminine tasks and stuff like that. She's obsessed with boys with all
And
of her
boys are
heart.
obsessed with her.
Yeah, and all of these, like, all the other characters, Sayaka and Madoka, like, they struggle to relate to her on even the basis level. And I just think it's like, oh, so you have Hitomi, which is, like, who they think they're supposed to be, and then who they actually are. And Sayaka is just, like, going through the motions of trying to, like, be Hitomi
Yes.
to the point of liking Kyosuke, even though she doesn't.
She is definitely intended as a foil in terms of, like,
Yeah.
that entire character arc and what's going on with
Yeah.
Sayaka, like, with regard to that. So, there is more than enough room for, a compulsory heterosexuality interpretation of that entire thing.
Yes. Yes.
Rubbing my gay little hands all over this anime.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. And that does. I hope you don't mind me just like going right into this.
No,
Yeah,
please,
it does,
please continue.
Bring. It does bring me into talking about rebellion in that like Homura has been living through this quote unquote like compulsory heterosexual life. You know, she's been shamed by Kyubey for wanting to save Madoka, for wanting to go back in time, for wanting to go against everything that he's been telling her. You know, like you can't stop what's going to happen. And when she finally accepts that, she turns into the devil, you know, and she reclaims all of the shame and guilt that Kyubey's been like piling onto her, and she, you know, takes back all of that power and becomes like the next most powerful like creature in the universe or whatever, you know.
Wow.
And I think that just says a lot about like the queer reading of it, you know. I mean, she's literally been shamed and guilted through the entire series, and right at the end, she's like, "Fuck this! I'm gonna become God." Like,
Yeah.
She becomes Little Nas X.
yeah. Oh, I am so sorry for swearing. Oh my gosh.
Oh, we can swear here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No worries.
We have talked about how the opening of the anime has a golden shower in it, so please.
Oh yeah. Oh my god.
I will never
Oh my god.
I will never forgive them / love them enough for actually saying that. So
I can't believe that. Oh my god.
Yeah, that totally went over my head when I was
I'm over
watching
here
it.
having these like galaxy brain moments, like yes, the Catholic imageries are all this stuff, and y'all are just like, yeah, but did you see the golden shower?
Oh my god.
There are two wolves inside you.
It's true.
And another thing is that, like, so we were talking a little bit about how, and this just came to me, so please disagree if this does not immediately vibe.
Yeah.
But we were talking earlier about how the first episode, a lot of its setup is kind of beat for beat, or not beat for beat, but in a lot of ways evocative of like a shoujo romance manga, like slice of life manga, like setup where
Yes,
we're
absolutely.
we're talking about relationships as we're getting ready to go to school, and then when we get to school, a mysterious transfer student is there who has a weird obsession with you, and you've never met them before, but you had a weird dream about them. Like, this is very cliche. Like, just putting it in, all of that is true about what happens in the first episode, but if you put it in that, if you phrase it that way without everything else going on, it sounds extremely cliche.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you make Homura a male character in that situation, it's like immediately romantic.
Absolutely.
In any other context. And what I find interesting about that is that Homura's attitude towards her is very kind of cold and standoffish. And
she's got some Edward from Twilight vibes going
on.
Oh god,
this is what I'm saying.
That's
that
exactly
too.
what I was thinking. Like,
this is what I'm saying.
She's that classic like male romantic lead.
Exactly. That too is also very like young adult romance novel cliche, where this person who shows up that you're attracted to immediately and has a weird obsession with you is also kind of acting like an asshole to you, and you don't really understand why. Yeah.
And they seem to know things about you that even you don't know.
Yeah,
like, it's so classic rom-com. Like, fantasy rom-com.
Exactly. And then you find out she's actually there on a mission to save you, and it's very queer. The whole thing is just very gay.
When you like take the story of Madoka and you write it down on paper, like it really does sound like a daydream kind of thing. Like this wonderful person comes and saves me from my life of suffering and all this stuff. And
but then you add in all the other elements, and that's what makes it so. What's the word I'm looking for? Not, I get deconstruction, but also like going against your expectations. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like taking all of those cliches and kind of going in a complete opposite direction with them once you get into the meat of the story.
Well, I think like part of it, and I think this is like part of the time that it was being written in, was that like a big part of the reversal was that the two main characters were both girls.
Yes.
And so you've got this like rom-com-esque type shoujo opening, and the reversal is, oh, your romantic lead is a girl. So you're going to go through the entire story being like, okay, but are they going to be gay? Like, I think that like adds like a interesting layer to like the whole story. Like I know like the author didn't really intend a queer reading, but with all of the choices that he
men
made,
never do.
Oh yeah, it's like that's a queer reading. Bro.
I mean, like, he might say that, but they know what they're doing.
But he's wrong.
But no, but also they know what they're doing. It's like saying, it's like the writers of Free being like, oh, they're not gay.
Oh god.
Exactly.
Yeah, like come on, you know,
Exactly.
you know what you're doing. You know that
Exactly.
you know who you're writing this for, and it's fine. Like if you're writing it for us, like thank you, that's fine.
Yeah.
if you're writing it to be ambiguous so that the heterosexual men can like it too, like that's not great. But you know,
well, it's a
like,
very 2011 way of getting things done.
Yeah.
And I find it just like really interesting. This is really random and a totally random reference to make, but so the movie Fight Club.
Let's go.
Yeah, the director intentionally filmed that movie so that Tyler Durden and the narrator character had a gay subtext because he wanted the movie to feel like off-putting for men to watch. So he added like a queer subtext, and I feel like Madoka is kind of like that, where he like was like, I'm gonna add this queer subtext because it'll be kind of weird, and then like actual queer people read it and they're like, wow, this is just like my life.
This speaks to me.
I didn't know that about the Fight Club movie, but I will say that there is like there's some queer subtext in the Fight Club book, which was written by a gay man. So
oh yeah, it's
not surprised
like,
that.
Like, one of the first lines of the Fight Club book is, like, this wasn't about control, this was about love. Martha, the lady loved me, but I loved Tyler. And it's like, yeah, he was bi, like...
Aw.
He was struggling.
Also, not to continue this, continue the diversion, but the first time that they introduced Tyler Durden in the book, he's like lounging naked on a beach. Like,
yeah.
Extremely heterosexual behavior.
Yeah, there's lots. That's exactly like how, why Tyler looks so sexy in the movie, is because like it's all from the narrator's point of view, and the narrator sees him as like the most beautiful man, and he can't get that out of his head. It's so funny how people misread Fight Club.
It's like how people misread The Matrix, or how people misread Starship Troopers, or
oh my god, Starship Troopers!
any other number of very left-wing movies that right-wing people just completely miss the point of.
I love Starship Troopers so
Me
much,
too.
and I never talk about it out in public because of that. Don't start quoting it at me. Anyway, totally off topic. Madoka.
So, what about the flashback episode 2? Because I feel like that is something that should be addressed when we're talking about their relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that is basically how it starts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's some things to say about what's going on with Homura when she first meets Madoka, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like, now, correct me if you, and this is again me going by the seat of my pants here, but I wonder if it's a little bit of the same thing but reversed, where it's another romance trope where Madoka is kind of like would be the male character.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Where Homer is a new person at school. She feels very uncomfortable with all these people crowding around her asking her questions, and then lo and behold, a sweet, well-liked girl from the class, or well-liked boy maybe, and this is what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I'm talking about. Girl/boy walks up and saves her from that uncomfortable situation and immediately befriends her. You know what I'm saying? And this
immediately shows her all these like nice things about her to get her confidence back.
Yeah.
It's very rom-com-y.
it's very like, I wish a knight in shining armor would immediately show up and make me feel better about myself and sweep me off my feet, and then shows up when Homura is essentially about to commit suicide. Like that's not literally what's happening, but she's in that mindset. She's in like So
oh yeah, that like scene of her like as she's like falling into the witch's labyrinth is like, ugh, that's real.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting, like, Homura's, like, whole arc is, like you were saying, like, the knight in shining armor. I feel like just that phrase, can, like, encapsulate so much of Madoka, and especially from, like, the lesbian, like, reading. Madoka came in as a knight in shining armor to save Homura at her lowest point, and so then Homura vowed to do everything that she could to, like, make it up to Madoka, to the point where the roles became completely reversed, and she became the knight in shining armor. And Madoka ended up experiencing this shoujo-esque rom-com introduction, like.
And so impressed was she by the prince that she vowed one day to become a prince herself.
I was just...
Oh!
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, here we go. We're bringing it back to Utena. Let's talk about Utena.
Yasha and Vana are not here, so I have to do their due diligence of making sure to slip in at least one Utena reference every episode.
I was gonna say,
so funny.
they're probably asleep right now, but they're definitely rolling over and like being like, why did I just wake up? What's happening?
This is so funny. I've been like spending the last couple, because I'm rewatching Utena right now, and I've spent the last couple of days being like, oh god, there's so much imagery like in Madoka and Utena that I bleh.
Yes.
There's so much. You know, I'm gonna just skip right ahead on down to my little allegory thing. So, I'm gonna start at the very, very beginning. So, you know, I'm gonna open this by talking about Utena. So, I might say some stuff you guys already know. So, Utena is a story that is, it takes place kind of in a stage world. So you have, like, the shadow puppet characters, you have Mickey, who uses, like, a timer, and at the very end of the whole entire thing, Utena turns into a car, literal vehicle of change, and they both escape the academy, leaving the academy behind, where everybody in the academy turns into straw, implying that the story of Utena takes place outside of the real world, kind of as a stage play. And it's more apparent as you watch the series and you see them use, like, literal stage effects, like costume swords and stuff like that. It's a little bit more obvious when you, like, go through Utena. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, did one of you say no?
No, I said yes.
It would be really
Okay,
funny
sorry.
if someone said no.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, no. So to, like, build off of Utena's, like, allegory there of it kind of taking place in, like, a stage play, you go into Madoka, where the series literally opens with a film strip going up, and then it counts down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then the series starts. And then you see, like, the witches, that are portrayed as shadow puppets, the various cardboard characters that are all, like, you know, that are the familiars and stuff like that. The labyrinths themselves, they all use, like, this different effect to make it look like a stage play,
like
basically.
collage, or like
yeah,
like not
it
like
uses,
animation.
Like, cutout. Yeah, it uses, like, cutout paper and stuff. They're 2D, and so yeah, it creates this, like, idea of, like, a stage play. And so I found this kind of interesting because as you go through the series, for my first example, you have Mommy. Mommy gets introduced, and she's this character who struggles with denial of the wish that she's created, the life that she's created. She made a contract with Kyubey, she made a wish that she regrets, and now she goes through life basically denying her emotions, her true feelings, her want to have friends and stuff like that to continue being a magical girl. And when she meets Madoka, they go into the witch's labyrinth together, and Mommy opens up and becomes vulnerable to Madoka. She's like, you know what, I'm going to change how I'm going to be from now on. I'm going to open my heart to other people, become friends, specifically Madoka, another girl. And she has this really intimate moment with her, and then immediately after that, Mommy dies. And I actually kind of see this as a sort of freeing from her state of denial. Mommy has accepted her true feelings. She has accepted her queer identity. And so she gets to leave the fake world, which is the world that they live in. She leaves the stage play. And this actually, I find, becomes even more apparent when you get to Sayaka's death. Sayaka, she can't quite accept her identity, and so she falls into despair, becomes one of these, like, paper cutout witches, and Kyoko, who has long accepted her denial, but, you know, she accepts fully when she sees what has happened with Sayaka, and she says to her, like, I'm not gonna let you go through this alone, you know, I finally understand everything now, and then they both disappear from the world, in a sort of sense, being freed from the depression and suffering that they all have. And then you get to the end where Madoka, you know, she rewrites the world. She makes it so witches are completely gone from the world and all that, and obviously Homura she still turns into a witch and all that. Spoilers for Rebellion.
Oh my god.
If you haven't seen it. And so then at the very end, Homura, like I was saying before, you know, she reclaims her queer identity and then literally rewrites this fake world out of existence. She pushes herself and the rest of the characters into the real world, where she brings all of the characters who have died back from the dead so that they can live their lives. And it seems very tragic when you, like, watch it and you're like, oh, all of these very queer characters have died, but I personally like to read it as, like, their deaths are kind of like the freeing of denial. The world that they live in is under Kyubey's control, basically, and as soon as they accept, you know, their true feelings, then they leave the story, basically. They are freed from the world of suffering. And it just reminds me a lot of how Utena does that exact same thing.
That is really interesting. Like, I didn't want to stop you halfway through.
Yeah, no worries, but that's basically my big thing.
Yeah, before I say this, does anyone, like, I will let Panda or Joe like add their comments before I like double back on something that you said earlier.
No, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Okay. It's interesting that you brought up Kyoko because I think what you just said fits perfectly with Kyoko, and we haven't really talked that much about Kyoko yet. But Kyoko, if we're thinking about all of the characters as being queer and kind of looking at their arcs in the lens of them being queer allegories, then Kyoko is the guilty, closeted lesbian.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know, as she is aware of how she really is. She sees it as a problem with her. She has guilt.
Yes.
She has resigned herself to just be a broken, sinful person, and that's just, it's very Catholic. That's just how I'm gonna have to be, you know?
Yeah.
And we've talked before about how so much of her story is very Catholic, with like the Catholic guilt and feeling like if you're suffering, that's what you're supposed to be doing. So
I mean, even the imagery like surrounding her, like her dad being like a preacher and all of that, like it even boiled right down into her story. There's a lot of religious imagery.
Yeah, and if you see the end of her arc being, you know what, I'm just going to let myself be gay. Like I'm just gonna let it. I'm just gonna be that way now, and I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna not be gay with you, not like, because I know that's kind of a silly way of saying it, but like I'm gonna embrace it and stand by you at the same time, Sayaka. Like, you're not gonna do this alone, we're in this together. That's kind of like, you can kind of look at her death in that way, where she's like, where what you were saying, like, I won't let you do this alone, because we're kind of both in the same we're in the same situation here. And
it definitely feels like she sees Sayaka and she's like, this is what I could be, and so I'm not gonna let that happen, and I'm gonna bring Sayaka back, and but just that way I see a lot of their deaths as being like freeing from the world of suffering.
Like, I'm not gonna stop blaming myself and intentionally being miserable because I feel like I need to hide it because I shouldn't be this way. I'm just gonna be this way. And then that is that's what removes her from the stage play. That kind like, of concept. Does that make sense with what you were saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to like reiterate like the whole idea of like the characters like dying, like, because death isn't like finite in the story. Like, all of the characters do come back, and so when a character dies, like, I don't see it as like a one-to-one allegory of a character like dying in real life kind of thing. Like, the whole idea of them like having to redo this loop, the idea of like them being able to like recreate new universes where they can bring all the characters back. It's like, okay, death isn't really a one-to-one character has died. It's more kind of like a spiritual dying or something.
Right.
Wow.
I guess would make sense with all of the... I was going to say, hey, Joe, can you talk about like Kyoko's like manga arc where they like go into the backstory?
Oh, it's so amazing. You know, because you guys on the podcast, you've been reading the Different Story manga, and I read it a few years ago, and I was going through the story, and I already had noticed how Kyoko's like we said, like her the Catholic symbolism. I already, like, from the show, I was seeing this as, like, she seems like a lesbian, and I feel like this thing of her father rejecting her, that, it speaks a lot of, like...
Rejecting her for being a witch.
Yeah, and the thing with, like, being, oh, you're a witch, and, stuff like that, it's very... resembles a lot, coming out conversation that goes wrong.
Yeah. And
then going through the Different Story manga, that's, we get to see exactly what the dialogue is like between Kyoko and her father, and it's essentially what happens, like, beat by beat. Being like, Kyoko making this wish in order to sort of, like, make her father happy, and, her wanting to, like, fit this idea that her family has of her, and having to, like, hide, the real her as a magical girl, and then when her father finds out, and they have this conversation where he's like, oh, I don't remember exactly word for word what he said, but, calling her a witch and
and then her father finds out, and their conversation is beat by beat, like a coming out dialogue to your parents in which they reject you.
Yeah, well, that's also what I was going at. And so this thing with,
Sorry, I was just reading your outline.
yeah. With, Steve's take on this is like this queer allegory. I think the different story manga just makes it like even more clear if it fits so well into that. As magical girls being like, it's like all these girls being actually, queer people, and I don't know. Someone else wants to add something to this.
I just think like it really speaks to like the series itself with Kyubey, and how like they're like, oh, you're these like magical girls, and you're so young and pure, and you have so much potential. You should use that potential to go out and destroy witches, which are these like strange women who live on the outskirts of society. And then they slowly find out that these strange women who live on the outskirts of society were once just regular girls like them.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you read that and not be like, oh, this is about not only like women in general, but like queer women.
Yeah.
Like, using the term witch is like so on the nose.
It's very loaded.
Yeah, so loaded.
Gen is enough of a smart guy to make me feel like that he knew, like that was intentional.
Oh, yeah.
Just because, the witches in Europe, like before the witch trials, they were just women who were unmarried and managed to support themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And when you look at Madoka with that reading, that like the idea of these witches, like the more that you think about it, it's like they're just these like depressed, on the fringes of society women who are like demonized, and people go out and hunt them and stuff like that. And it's like that's exactly how women are treated in the real world,
Yeah. Also makes me think how Kyubey didn't really try to get Hitomi to be contracted. I think in the podcast you guys talk about it in the sense that, Hitomi wouldn't fall for that trap, but also under this reading it's like, she's straight, so...
Hitomi's straight,
that's
so
why.
I think it just speaks to, like, Kyubey being, like, super, super manipulative, like, he intentionally goes for vulnerable girls and stuff like that. And this is not a queer reading, but like it speaks to like another like interpretation of the show that I like to go for, which is that like Kyubey is an older man who is taking advantage of young women.
Yes.
And it's really apparent in the way that he speaks to the characters, what characters he goes for, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, much darker interpretation.
No, it's okay. I had a thought and I was trying to bring it back to my head.
Oh, sorry.
If someone has more to say, please pipe in while I'm thinking.
Not queer related, and you can totally like cut this out, but I mean, the first time I ever watched Madoka, the first reading I applied to it was like, this seems like a story about high school prostitution.
Oh, huh.
Yeah.
I had not thought of that.
I mean, like, just, like, it was mostly because I was just trying to, like, understand Kyubey's character, and it's like, there's no way I can go through the story without reading Kyubey as, like, a man, like, not a man, but, like, an adult who is manipulating young children.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Like, younger
it's definitely there.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, he has all the power, all the information.
Yeah. And his, like, motives are, like, it's, like, economic based almost.
Yeah.
And it's, like, that's so weird. It's so weird. I think that just makes him an interesting villain.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wish he didn't look so cute, though. And anybody else get, like, just a really sick enjoyment of watching him get, like, beat up a lot in Rebellion?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, that was...
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I'm not gonna say everything in Rebellion is bad. I'm on record as saying that.
We did like to see Kyubey get killed a bunch.
Yes. I don't remember what I was going to say, but now I remembered a different thing I was going to say.
Great.
Okay, that
That's
worked out.
perfect.
I think that even if you kind of take a little bit more of my approach to Homura, where you kind of like ignore Rebellion essentially and think of it as something that was not necessarily meant to follow from the original anime,
Mm-hmm.
I still think the original anime is very much queer coded on its own. Like,
Yeah.
you don't.
yeah, absolutely.
You don't need Rebellion to get there.
No.
No, not at all.
You could, in that sense, see it as Homura kind of having her initial adolescent romantic experience, where you're not, when you're young, you don't really know what relationships are all about or what they're supposed to be all about. And we've talked before about how just looking at the original anime, you can interpret Homura's character arc as learning to let Madoka come to her own decisions and have her own agency. And that by the end of the show, she does find some peace with what Madoka has done, because she knows that it's what Madoka chose to do. And it's no longer her responsibility to have gotten Madoka out of that situation, because Madoka got herself out of that situation on her own.
Yeah.
So if you look at that through the like a queer theory kind of lens, I think that can also still apply, with maybe the two of them having that being like a initial youthful lesbian relationship kind of thing, where Homura was for a period very possessive and clingy, trying to figure out how she was supposed to be and how she was supposed to act towards Madoka, and Madoka, in her own way, deciding on her own, like, what their relationship was going to be like, and then maybe it turning into a good breakup.
I really like that. If I look at the series and omitting Rebellion, I think it ends on this really interesting note of, like, Homura basically, like, starting off as, like, an innocent person, but not like a good person, and then like learning over time to like come to terms with her own like grief about her identity and stuff like that, and then learning to give agency to Madoka, and it ends on that really nice like I have the acceptance of who I am, and I don't have to control other people.
Yeah, and there is some heartbreak that comes, like, and I'm speaking a little bit from experience when I bring this up, because my first romantic relationship ever was in middle school with another girl, and when that relationship eventually ended as we were getting older and into high school and like turning into different people, it was very sad, because that was the beginning of like figuring out my identity in a lot of ways. So breaking up was very upsetting, like in more ways than just a normal breakup would be.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
I mean, like, I'm trans, but I did identify as lesbian way before I became a man. And, like, yeah, my first lesbian breakup was, like, devastating.
Yeah.
Like, so devastating. Like, 7 months lying in bed.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So I wonder if we're looking at just the anime and divorcing the anime's ending from Rebellion and giving it some more room for interpretation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if it's not a little bit of Homura coming to feel more comfortable with how things ended with Madoka, and letting it be what it was. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely. I do think like it's really interesting because like the anime like opens, like we were saying before, like with all this like shoujo rom-com-y referential stuff, and so if you look at it from that perspective, the ending makes a lot more sense, that like they don't end up together. This is a story about love, not a love story, to quote 500 Days of Summer.
Yeah.
And I think like even that interpretation I really like, because like it ends on this note of like relationships are relationships, and being comfortable with yourself is good and important.
Not to suddenly bring the hets into this, but
How dare you?
I'm sorry, but that is part of why I love La La Land so much. Even though it should not have gotten Best Picture in the year that it won Best Picture, I do still very much love that movie, because it's a movie about how relationships, there's more good things about relationships than just when they're successful. Like you can look back on them and appreciate what they did for you in your life and you as a person, even if it ended in a way that wasn't ideal, you know?
Yeah.
When I found out that the movie ended the way that it does, I was like, oh, that's actually interesting. I didn't think a movie like that would be that ambitious.
Yeah. I shouldn't say this because I don't want to offend any listeners or any of you guys, but it's one of those shorthand things in my brain where it's like, are you a normie who doesn't understand media, or do you get it? Where it's like if someone tells me they don't like the ending to La La Land, I'm like, oh. You didn't get
what
it.
If I just don't like La La Land the movie, Amanda?
Well, that's fine.
That's a good time.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But people
Yeah.
who specifically were enjoying it and then get to the ending and they're like, they should have ended up together. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah.
so you missed the point of the movie.
You didn't get it. You didn't understand
Yeah.
the movie. Yeah.
I'm like, hey, I'll say some controversial movie takes. I'm a horror movie fan.
Okay.
So, when people talk about, like, the ending of A Promising Young Woman or the ending of Midsummer, and it's like, you can kind of tell, like, how people feel about women.
Yeah.
By how
Yes.
they liked the ending of those movies.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like, I don't think the boyfriend deserved any of that in Midsummer. And it's like, you really think that, huh? Yeah. I'm sure you think a lot of women deserve all sorts of things. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's the controversial movie take.
What's the movie I'm thinking of? I don't think it's 500 Days of Summer.
I mean, if people watch that movie and they're like,
no, it is 500. Yes, it is 500 Days of Summer.
Like,
where it's like, man, everything he was doing was so romantic, and I just don't understand. Like,
Oh my god.
why would Summer be mad at him?
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, he sucked.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
That's the kind of stuff where I'm like, oh, you don't understand movies. Okay.
yeah. Oh god. I'm like, I'm about to pull out the Steven Universe hot takes. No.
Oh my god.
No. Yeah, like, if you walked out of 500 Days of Summer and you were like, I would have dated Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
We don't have time to unpack all of that.
Yeah, really? We only have 15 minutes. I can't get into it.
All right. What else do we want to cover before we finish? Did we get into Homura becoming Montero?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
So, like, as Lil Nas X said, he grew up in a highly religious neighborhood life, you know, he grew up in a black church and all that stuff. He was told his whole life that being gay is a sin, that the AIDS crisis was like his punishment and stuff, and then he became famous, and then he told himself he would never come out publicly, and then he was like, you know what, fuck it, and he released Montero, Call Me By Your Name, which is a song based on an actual conversation he had with a gay lover of his. And I literally watched that, and it's just a music video and a song about being like, I've been told my whole life that I'm a demon and I'm gonna go to hell, so if that's the case, then I'm gonna go to hell and I'm gonna kill the devil and become king of hell. And that's literally just how I watched the end of Rebellion. Like, Homura has been told the entire story by Kyubey, like, you can't be with Madoka, you suck and you're dumb and you've totally ruined the world and now you're never gonna be happy.
Yeah, you're
like,
the reason
you know
Madoka's in
what?
so much trouble right now. Yeah.
And Homura just literally went like, you know what? If Madoka can change the rules of the universe, so can I. Fuck you.
Fuck yeah.
And just, kills Satan, Kyubey, and becomes the king of hell. Or the queen of hell. The duchess of hell. And that is why Homura is Montero.
Also, the rainbows in her labyrinth. It's a little on the nose.
So
Yes.
many
Yeah.
rainbows.
Joe
Wow.
was pointing that out when we were rewatching Rebellion.
Yeah, every time we watch Rebellion, I'm just like, wow, they really did that there, and there, and there, they're everywhere.
It's even in the scene where Sayaka and Kyoko, like, meet up again in the final battle, and it's like they're holding hands,
Oh,
and there's,
yeah.
like,
They're already
rainbows in
being
the
like,
background.
basically like, about to kiss, and then it's like,
I remember when I saw that for the first time, I was like, oh, this is very, like, if people weren't supposed to be thinking about shipping Sayaka and Kyoko, like, this is just the movie being like, this is it. Here they are.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I remember watching, like, Sayaka's last episode in the series and being like, wow, that was some lesbian subtext.
Yeah.
Like, damn. And then I watched the movie and was like, oh, so they're canon. Oh, so it's canon.
Yep. I will
Basically.
say, I think we can all be thankful that Homura did not have to give a lap dance to Cube in order to become.
Oh God!
His lap would be so small. How would she do it?
His lap would be so small.
He's a tiny baby. He's an evil baby, but he's a tiny baby.
I would say, like, the equivalent of that is the fact that Homura's outfit is so unnecessarily sexy. Like,
Yeah.
It really is like Lil Nas walking into hell with those like big boots. Like that is the energy that Homura brings to the end of Rebellion.
Yeah.
it's thigh-high boots and boxer briefs and nothing else.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Okay, the funniest thing about that is that he's wearing fake tattoos in that music video, and I think, like, that's the funniest thing to apply to Homura. Like, Homura goes through her goth girl phase, and every morning she's putting on, like, warm water tattoos on her, like, arms.
That would be so funny. Someone please give me a drawing of Homura in her goth era.
Well, now I gotta write it down.
I kind of feel like Homura is kind of just perpetually always in her goth era.
I know.
Yeah.
It's true. She just needs an e-girl outfit.
It's like she's goth scene, and then she meets Madoka, and then goes e-girl for her.
Oh my god.
Well, I hope we talked about all the cool things. I'm so sorry, Joe, for talking so much.
No, you do such a good job of talking for me because, you know, we already talked about all this stuff. I'm just like, contain myself.
I think Joe has brought me a lot of insight on this whole thing. I mean, like, I wouldn't have written up any of this kind of stuff if Joe hadn't been like, hey, rewatch Madoka.
Yeah, I think, like, Homura, you know, besides all the stuff that she goes through, which makes her such an interesting character, I don't know, seeing her as a lesbian as well was so, like, I don't know, healing for me when I was watching it because, you know, she you know, this whole thing that she has with, like, self-hatred, I feel like, you know, her being a lesbian fits so much into that because it's, you know, it's like such a shameful thing and you spend like your childhood years like having to like you start off like convincing yourself that you like men and then you're like okay and then you're like trying to work things out in your head how you know you're just you know you're a lesbian. It's like such a hard thing to come to terms with. And I think I thought at first that in this world which is like so futuristic, which we see how, you know, Madoka's mom is, you know, the one that goes to work and her dad is the one that stays home, is, you know, looking after the kid and everything. Like, at first I thought, like, oh, maybe, like, you know, homophobia isn't really a thing, but, like, it still is, I think. At least with, like, how Itomi reacts, it's not like, if she reacts like that, then it must be, you know, still a common thing, you know, in that world. So I would imagine that, besides all the flaws that Homer sees in herself, lesbianism is one of those, and it's that sort of thing where, like, in the flashback episodes, I can imagine that it was the sort of part of herself that she hated herself for, but then it also, like, you know, kind of, like, helped her power through, you know, all that she went through for Madoka. And then going into Rebellion, I still feel like, you know, it's, again, like, it's that shameful part of herself, and then seeing her just, like Steve said, you know, just accept that and own up to it. It was just like, wow. Which is, you know, such a big reason for me to, you know, to love that movie so much. And I totally understand, like, there's, like, lots of things to dislike about it, you know, especially with how you read the series. But I don't know. I just, lot of the, sorry?
Yeah, especially if you're like you end the series like what we were talking about earlier with like
I
this
think
idea that like they've had like this healthy breakup, and then you go into Rebellion and it kind of breaks down Homura's character into something a bit more flawed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I hadn't thought about that, the healthy breakup sort of like perspective on it. I really love that. That's so, wow.
Yeah.
That's so good.
What's more lesbian than thinking that the breakup that you had was, like, fine and mutual, and then you realize, like, a year later, like, oh, I may have some buried emotions
trauma.
about this that I have not addressed yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
like, just to speak to like Joe's perspective, like it's like important and like pivotal to like a queer person to see a queer character on screen that's not just like, I'm gay and I live a happy perfect life. Like it's so amazing and like eye-opening to see a character that's not only gay or, you know, queer in some way, but also that they are like a fully rounded character with flaws that you can relate to.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
like, the fact that these characters like have stuff that makes them unlikable to some people is what's important, because like, wow, yeah, queer people are humans.
Yeah, I completely
and now
agree.
I get to see that represented in the stuff that I get to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of that, and also, you know, like I said, like I was watching this when I was younger, and I was trying to look for media that, you know, portrayed gay people, and it was so hard to find. Like, you either got queer bait in the sense that, you know, there could be something between these two characters, but it's never going to be developed, it's never going to be confirmed,
addressed directly. Yeah.
Exactly. Or it's, you know, queer bait in the sense that, I don't know, like, maybe not queer bait, but it's like, it's either like, not, it's like barely enough for you to be like, okay, these may be gay people, or it's like, just like really sexual and like,
or negative.
Yeah.
Like it's like
negative,
it's stereotypes, you know? Or just the kind of bad representation that we used to have like in the 90s, kind of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And then
very
going
one note, just very one note characters.
Yeah, and then going into Madoka, and you know, I started watching it because it's gay, but then like, you know, that kind of like blended into the background because I was enjoying the story so much. But then seeing that like come to the surface with the flashback episodes, you know, these hints, and then boof, rebellion. It was just so. I was really like, I cannot believe that, you know, this is happening, and it feels very genuine, and it doesn't feel like, you know, it's not, I don't know, it doesn't feel like I'm being insulted whilst I'm watching this, you know. It was really, I don't know, it was so amazing to see that.
Even just the end of like the series, like with Homura and Madoka's like final conversation, like there's just something so inherently queer about everything that's going on screen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No.
How dare you just show me that, Panda?
Oh, for listeners, I, without warning, posted a very sad piece of Madoka fan art in the group chat.
That's
have you seen those like 10th anniversary paintings, like the one with it's like Homura and she's like trying to scoop up like little goldfish.
Oh my god.
Anyway, I'll link it.
Yes, if you can find it right now and link it, I would love to see it.
I know that it's in me and Joe's Madoka chat.
Alright, so, what have we learned?
Gay.
Gay.
Yeah.
Gay.
That's right. Jot it down.
Well, first of all, gay, so jot that down.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
It's just so sad.
It's just really surreal, really sad.
Good God. Who drew these?
For the listeners, I guess, there's like one with like Homura putting together a puzzle, and the puzzle is Madoka. I don't know. It's just pretty stuff.
So
underneath the puzzle, what's going on with that? Is her magical form? Is her magical girl form? Yeah.
She's like trying to put all the pieces back in.
Aww.
Kyoko is filling the gap of her family in her portrait with snacks.
That's
it's a little on the nose.
Like, I was gonna say, that's such a perfect encapsulation of everything she does in the anime.
Yeah.
Look at me, I'm just the character that eats a lot. Ha 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 ha. My entire existence is hollow.
I'm the funny goof character.
I mean, I also try to fill the gaps in my soul that my family left behind with food, so... I can understand.
Every night I eat my sweet chili heat Doritos
That's
where my
right.
dad left me.
Oh my god.
I will say, for the record, for any trans people out there, my parents were really shitty, and just recently they contacted me again using my name and gender. So, you know, there's hope.
Yay!
Oh, that's awesome.
There's,
Character
Yeah,
development.
yeah. Sometimes your parents do get better.
All right. Well, I think this has been great. And
Yeah,
unless we have any closing thoughts, I know that we need to wrap up.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Closing thoughts.
Homura is Lil Nas X, and also Utena is a good anime.
Those are the two lessons that I think that we hope to impart with every episode of this podcast.
Yeah.
What do you think, Joe?
I don't know. I think we've said, you know.
It's okay not to have
everything.
anything else that you feel like you need to say.
Yeah, it's either like, oh, I don't really have much to say, or what I do have to say would take another 2 hours, so better not to say it. You know.
Yeah, it's like I could do this forever.
You could always just have your closing thoughts be a stupid joke.
Yeah, that's what I did.
I don't know. I don't know. Could we maybe each of us could say one of our favorite romantic subtext scenes in Madoka just to fit
Oh,
the
sure.
episode?
Yeah.
Okay, so mine, I have, so many, but I think mine is the flower field scene in
I was just
Rebellion.
thinking that.
It makes me cry every time, when Homer's like, oh, I had a bad dream, it's so, boof, it's so powerful, makes me so sad, and then she just leaves Madoka there. Oh, so yeah, that's my favorite scene, I think, with those two.
I love that one comic that's just like Madoka trying
Yeah.
to confess her feelings to Homura, and it's just Homura just like randomly leaving her every time in Rebellion.
Rebellion, yeah.
Honestly, the greatest scene ever of all of Madoka, sorry it's in Rebellion, but it's when she's like, oh, this is the darkest, most evilest emotion ever. It's love, and then she takes Madoka. Like, that's the greatest thing ever. I remember I got
She's
chills
amazing.
watching that.
I was so oof. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, did she say that? Did she really say that? No, what?
Yeah.
So crazy.
I had to watch the English version because I was like, I don't even believe it.
I didn't even believe it. Yeah.
And the English version is like, oh yeah, this is gay. This is really gay. How about you guys?
I love the one moment at the end of the anime, that one image of Homura being like wounded and unable to get up, and Madoka just kind of kneels next to her and hugs her head, hugs her around her neck, from the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just very intimate, and I feel like if I really think of truly, that's not really subtext, but when I think of really truly romantic moments in the show that are my favorite, that's what I think of. And doesn't that just encapsulate me on Madoka? I want the squishy, cute, happy things. I don't want the...
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I like talking to other people
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, what's your favorite part? And it's like, I like the part where their hands touch. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I know
That's
what
me
you
with
mean.
literally everything. Is I like the part where their hands.
Yeah.
I think probably my favorite part is when Homura incorporates Madoka's weapon into her own weapon.
So-
and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So beautiful.
I'm a sucker for it. I really am. It's just so good.
Oh, it's so good.
That's some classic romantic writing.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
even gay, just romantic in general.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
get chills every
you
time
know-
I think of it.
This is another scene, but also another classic is when Rebellion, the two joined the bows together and shot the arrow together. That's so...
Yeah.
That's, it's kind of a cliche, but I love it so much. It happened in Little Witch Academia as well, and I was like, wow.
Yeah,
Gay
that
people,
one's also
they
really
do
gay.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this Joe and I were talking about this in our previous conversation, but it's like, yeah, the two people using a bow together, for some reason, very lesbian.
Oh, extremely. It's just the intimacy and, like, like lesbians and hands. Like, you have to, like, be very
Exactly.
delicate, like, and purposeful when you use a bow. Like, yes.
There's something so lesbian about swords and bows.
Yes.
Is this why I like fantasy genre so much?
Aw.
I want Lord of the Rings, but they're all lesbians.
Oh my
Yes!
god, that is so cool.
That's my dream. Well, anyway, we should totally wrap up because I do need to leave soon.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
So, thank you guys for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having
so
me.
wonderful to talk about a very wonderful topic that I know we love very dearly.
I am just so honored.
Oh, well, we were honored to have you. If anyone would like to follow either of you online, where would they be able to do so?
You can find me at Steve Twisp. That's Steve TWISP on Twitter or Tumblr or YouTube.
Yeah, and you can find my art at Fizzled Lines and literally basically everywhere: Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram.
You can follow me on Twitter at Lambda Power, LAMBDA Power, and Panda is Pandanata.
Yes, I am.
Do you feel like promoting your other podcasts since you have the opportunity?
Sure.
Yeah.
I do other things. I have an Utena podcast, or it's a general Kunihiko Ikuhara podcast, but at the root of it, it is still an Utena podcast. Imagine Me and Utena. I have another podcast called The Fresh Podcast Market, where we come up with ideas for fake podcasts and also just talk about anime. And I also do a podcast about comic books called The Comics Podcast, which I'm going to be recording later this evening.
Oh, busy day.
Busy.
Yes.
Every
Busy
time
day for me.
I talk to you, you have another podcast.
Well, I don't promote the comics podcast a lot, so
Okay.
that probably seems like it's new, but I've been doing that one for like a year.
Okay, all right. Never mind.
That was a situation of me joining someone else's podcast as opposed to starting one.
Well, I guess I'll be listening to so many podcasts today.
Aw.
And where can we find the show, Amanda? If people want to find this podcast, hopefully they found it because they're listening to it, but
Yeah,
just in case.
you can follow the show on YouTube at Madoka Magicast, SoundCloud, Madoka Magicast. We are also on Twitter. Twitter is really the only social media that actually gets updated,
Okay.
although we're technically on other social media also. We're also on Twitter at Madoka Magicast, and also on Patreon, where if you become a patron for at least $5, you will get a very, very cool heart-shaped button pin with Madoka.
Ooh.
Yeah, and if you are if you're at $5 for at least 2 months, or if you do $10, you get one with both. You get two with Homura and Madoka. So
Oh, I got those.
They are pretty
They're
swanky.
gorgeous. They're
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Joe just got some, and what did you think about them, Joe?
They're so beautiful.
Yeah, they're really nice.
Well, I need to get some.
Yes, please. So yes, that's patreon.com/Madoka Magicast. All the support from the show definitely helps us. So thank you, as always, to all Patreon supporters. And you can become a patron for $2 to get access to exclusives that are on Patreon only.
And early episodes.
And early episodes, yeah. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you everybody for listening. And I think when next time we come back, it's probably going to be different story stuff.
Woohoo!
Exciting.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's about it, I think.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys. It was
Bye,
so good
everybody.
talking to you.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.